All
Mike,
right.
you're going to take the first part of this.
Cool. So let's just set the agenda so people feel comfortable and you don't get vertigo. We're going to start with where did it start? Like how did the adult entertainment industry and other parts of society start all of this off? Then we're going to look at some innovations along the way. Just give you a historical perspective, get you grounded, remember where we came from. Then I'm going to hand it over to Sal. He's going to talk about building a better mousetrap and lots of interesting details for you to chew on and ask questions about. And then we'll end up with what's next. What's the future of donation forms? So let's jump in. How about some intro, Sal? Quick
Sure.
intro.
Yeah. I was Chief Experience Officer. Now I'm a Chief Partnerships Officer here at Fundraise Up. 15 years, digital strategy and marketing. I've worked in e-commerce, for-profit, nonprofit, government, for some embassies and things like that when I was living in Europe, academia for a number of universities. Quite a number of different things there over the last 20 years or so. I was the first Fundraise Up employee, and I'm here for the ride. Speak three languages, ride a Vespa every day to work. Lived in Jersey, NYC, Rome, London, Miami. That's kind of a flyover of me,
Cool.
Michael.
Good. All connected. I was the first employee at HJC 30 years ago this May. Uh, Man, I got a fundraising tattoo. I believe in this sector so much. We can talk about that offline. Um, and I just care about how technology makes the world a better place and have for the last few decades. And happy to dig in with you today. So let's get started.
All right, let's get to that next slide there. All right.
All right. So let's a little bit of participation along the way, right? Sal and I are going to stop, going to ask you questions. First thing, just if you remember, even guess, don't have to be right. Do you remember, something that you purchased online a long time ago? What was it? What was an early e-commerce purchase for you? Don't be embarrassed. Type
Ooh,
it in.
a
What do we
lot of
got?
people saying books.
Cool. Yeah, eBay, jerseys, watches, CDs. Um, yep, books.
CDBaby.com, one of those early ones.
Yep, absolutely books, right? I mean, a lot of us remember that. Um, so I want you to hold that in your mind, right? Remember that experience. So as we go on this historical journey for a number of minutes, and then we transition to Sal's look at best practice donation forms through Fundraise Up, just the feeling. Remember making those first purchases because we're going to keep coming back to things like trust and functionality. Let's keep going. Cool. Thanks for doing that. So how do we get right online giving forms off the ground? It was back in the 90s, and we had organizations like Amnesty and Greenpeace saying, "Hey, uh, how do we take credit cards online? How do we fuel social movements and our mission online? This internet seems to be a thing. We gotta get going." And so you can see that picture of that factory. That is 99 Atlantic Avenue. It's here in Toronto. It's an old factory area. And HJC was sitting there in the 90s. Amnesty and Greenpeace came to us and said, "How do we get our first online forms up?" And we knew down the hall was an adult entertainment industry company. And we knew they were taking credit cards online. We knew that they were working this out at the very beginning. And so we sat down on behalf of Greenpeace and Amnesty. They showed us how to do it, right? We figured out the banking side and we got it up and running. So if we go to the next slide.
Yeah, that's amazing right there. That whole story.
Yeah. And so part of this, Daryl Upsall was the international fundraising director of Greenpeace. And he said, "Mike, we got to catch eyeballs." And so you saw the animation. This was the first animated donation button. Join Greenpeace. And we had a mesmer like ability to catch eyeballs and drive donations. So Sal's going to talk about things like machine learning. He's going to talk about AI. He's going to talk about all kinds of cool things. Well, we just had a little animated button at the start, right, to increase the traffic to the donation form. So we go to the next one. And so this was the first giving form for Greenpeace that we got up and running in the 90s. And take a look. Think about this. Back in the 90s, we were saying, let's make it all about monthly giving. So porn industry company taught us, we figured out the back end, and then we launched forms like this for different organizations. And some of the things haven't changed, and I'm sure Sal would agree. Like there's an affirmative statement, right? There's imagery that's connected to mission, right? You're giving some amounts that are persuasive. This is it, guys. And so let's take inspiration from this. There are lots of things that we were starting to get right back then, and we need to have to remind ourselves that we still need to do those things, right? We can't forget where we've come from.
Yeah. I'm just gonna, I'll add that, I know our title for this session was a little controversial or got a lot of eyeballs at least.
Yeah,
We're already through that part, but it's a testament to how the other industries that are forced to go faster and grow faster do
yeah,
influence everything in our space.
absolutely. And so way back in the 90s as well, organizations were saying, we don't need an online donation form. We're never going to have public interest. Just concentrate on it. And what we used to call flash philanthropy, when there was peak public awareness. And so I would love for people to type in, what is this event? You've got Fidel Castro, Jimmy Carter, the head of Cuba, the American president, wearing suits at an event. What is this event, guys? Everyone, take a guess. Take a guess. What do you think? Why would they be together? A funeral. 100%. It is a funeral. Whose funeral? Whose funeral? Would these two leaders come across the world and be together? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pierre Trudeau. So the Canadian Prime Minister, who was a friend to both of them. And so the connection here is we were working for the Parkinson's Foundation. We got up their early e-commerce and we said, you need a donation form. You need a donation form up in case society pays attention. No, we're the kind of health charity that no one really cares about. We're never going to need a best practice, functioning donation form. Well, Pierre Trudeau died, a Canadian well-known and well-beloved, and suddenly the family said, make donations to the Parkinson Foundation. People poured online. So let's go to the next slide. And you can see here at the very last minute, they said, oh gosh, you were right. We better get this up and running. You can see that tiny little button in the bottom. And lo and behold, because they rushed it, right? Because they didn't prepare for it, it didn't work. It didn't work for 2 days. And so they lost literally millions of dollars of donations that could have happened if they were prepared, if they had got it built. And that's really what we're talking about today, ultimately, right? The donation form is such a sharp end of the stick, right? Build that right, make it work well. When there's peak public awareness times, you'll take advantage of that. And then just in your general fundraising. So if we go to the next one, please.
Okay.
Okay. Chat box. Now we asked you, think about that first purchase. You're talking about books and music. First online donation. I know this is harder to remember. Absolutely. But does anybody, WWF, fantastic. Yep. Who was out early? Canadian Cancer Society, St. Jude, KCRW, right? Girl Scouts. I'm impressed that people remember. I think this is great. Sick Kids, Komen, right? PTA. Excellent. The Coney, yep, the Coney campaign. For those of you who've been around, March of Dimes. Okay, so remember that. Remember that first donation, that first commercial purchase. Remember the first donation. Let's go to the next slide. So we continue to try to make this a better experience, right? That here is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And way back in the early 2000s, I went to Irving, Texas, and we sat down and we said, okay, you've got these donation forms. They look like you're ordering a book or a plasma TV. So what can we do, right, to make it emotive, persuasive? If we go to the next slide,
Yeah,
Lo and behold,
I'm gonna just say I've seen some donation forms that don't look too far from this today, Michael.
yeah. And so back then, what we were trying to do is just make them persuasive from a non-technical perspective, right? That we were trying to tell a story, to have an affirmative statement, to show what you could accomplish. And I think we've come much farther. And in some ways, Sal, we've simplified this process. So this was the direction we were going in. I think we were properly now going back in the other direction, which is to look at how the commercial sector influences how to make it simple. So we might have been going in the wrong direction, but we didn't know. Okay. This is hard to look at. This is a very early Greenpeace Canada donation form. And so we're going to talk a few minutes about innovation. And then this innovation was around customer service and multiple channels for contact. So back in the 90s, we didn't completely trust the online environment. So they said, we better have a telephone number. We better have our mailing address because a lot of people aren't going to feel comfortable to use this online donation form. And so we just packed it full of every channel for people to make their decisions. And back then in the 90s, the early adopters were younger shifted donors, and middle-aged and older donors were a very tiny percentage of those who've given. Of course, that has changed dramatically. But this is what it looked like in the 90s for us to do online donation forms. They were packed with other channels. If we go to the next. And so here's another example, early choice. So organizations back in the 90s said, well, gosh, Mike, could we have a bunch of different places where people would like to give. Can we move beyond just that general donation? And so we started to add drop-down ability for people to direct where their gifts were going. So starting to emphasize things like monthly, starting to emphasize directedness and specificity in people's giving. And we were doing all of these things willy-nilly in some ways and not in a systematic way to just figure out where are the best places for us to be with online donation forms. If we go to the next slide. And so you can see the early days of an amnesty form. Again, it was, Sal, I would say it's pretty. Right back then, you can see
better,
this
yeah.
trend, right? There's an aesthetic. Whether it was truly effective and tested to be so, back in the 90s, we were making them pretty. And you can see here, I think a best practice around monthly giving we used to emphasize with Amnesty around the world is what that monthly gift accomplished. And I think that remains best practice. And so all of this culminated, right? All of this culminated to writing a book back in the late 90s on online giving best practice. So we already had 3 or 4 years from 96, 97, 98, 99. And then we started to publish some early online donation form book chapters. And here's one back from 1998, which is part of the AFP Fund Development Series, I believe. And you can see what are we trying to do here? And you can see that we started to talk about a checklist that talked about building trust, right? Giving people payment options, emphasizing monthly giving, and giving people donor choice. So those are the fundamentals. And I can't say you're going to be very far off a number of those, Sal, as you talk about where we are now. And you can see.
I was looking
Go
at
ahead.
this final one here, method of payment. I wonder what this page would look like today. Has it changed much? Does it say, is your donation form responsive for mobile donors? Have those priorities changed? But that's just curiosity.
That's another session. Okay, if we can move. Okay, so I'll do this last chat box, and then I'll hand it over to Sal to take it away from here. Another question, guys. What's the most important thing to win your trust when purchasing? Let's talk about purchase. So let's go back to your books. Let's go back to your songs, right? What reviews? Fantastic. Security. Yep.
I saw someone else say they felt like they were going to get robbed the first time they made a donation in the 90s.
Yep.
But yes, that's important. Security.
So security hasn't changed, right? I mean, reviews is something that that trust radius like, right, need in the marketplace is super important. Yeah, quality. ratings and reviews, quality of the website, and confirmation. Yep,
Mhm.
yep, reviews, excellent. SSL, quality looking site, usability, of course. So I'll hand it over, Sal. You can keep moving along.
Sure, Mike, please jump in with anything as I go through on anything you can, add to the conversation.
You bet.
Um, you know, p- Piggybacking off of that last question, now what's the most important thing to win your trust when donating online? Is it
Mhm.
different? If you want to put something in the chat, just state same, or if it's something different when you're donating, right? This is the same question, but now we're putting on our donor hat over our consumer hat.
Yeah, I love what's popping up here. This idea of transparency,
Hmm.
organizational transparency, authenticity, right? Yeah,
Impact, a lot of impact. Yeah.
genuine. Yeah, transparency, 100%.
So all of these things are really, tapping into things that are part of the emotional part of us. You know, I want to know, what's my dollar doing? How good can I feel about putting my money there?
Hmm.
Whereas buying some shoes or a car stereo, I was looking on Best Buy earlier, you have a different set of criteria there that's important to you. So that just kind of parlays into this pop quiz. What's the difference in an online transaction experience expectation? The experience between a consumer and a donor, right? The experience is how you make it happen. When you order on Uber Eats and then go to donate to nonprofit X, do you have the same expectation of the nonprofit, or should you? There's really no difference. I don't speak all of those languages, just a couple of them, three of them. But your donors are not you, right? You work in the nonprofit space. We have a different lens that we're looking at things with, that we work in this space. But your typical donor, they just bought something on their app, they just bought something on their desktop, they just tapped to pay in a store and they walked out without taking their credit card out. They expect you to be there. And Joe there in the chat mentions, they used to be more forgiving, but they expect a higher level now, which is true. And nonprofits have to strive for that. And I believe the technology companies also are pushing that envelope. Am I still here?
Hmm.
Okay, sorry, my headphones made a little sound. So the consumer expectations are the baseline for donor expectations. Same person, same device, same expectations, and just like Joe said in the chat, getting a pass is increasingly difficult for nonprofits. So I think we have a poll here that we're going to put up. There's some poll masters happening in the background pulling strings. Let's see if we can pop that up on the screen. There you go, open poll. Click on the poll tab. Tell me, when you're making a purchase online in your consumer life, which of the following are the most important part of making a purchase for you? To get it done, to make that purchase? Is it auto completion? I don't want to type my whole address. Is it mobile wallets or express payments like PayPal, Apple Pay, etc.? Is it opportunities for a discount? Or is it having a trusted on-site checkout? So A, B, C, or D, throw it into the poll and tell me what you feel is most important for you. We have a lot of people looking here for, wow, over 70 votes already. This is great. Okay, mobile
It's
wallet,
it's neck and neck.
neck and neck. Those are two.
Yeah.
These are critical, right? So when you're ordering something online, you want to be able to pay easily, and
Oh,
you don't want to type your entire address,
auto
right?
address
We are
ahead.
spoiled. We are spoiled. We don't want to type. I want to put my first three digits of my address and have
Hmm.
it tell me where I am, because we're spoiled and the tech can do it. So we've got address auto completion. We're over 130 votes now, people, and that's
Cool.
closed. So that's a fantastic response. Thank you, everybody. Now, with those two things, we're going to go ahead and keep that in mind, right? When you're purchasing, what's easy? I want to pay easily and I don't want to type much. What are nonprofits up against with those same two criteria? Friction tolerance. Tolerance for payment friction is higher when buying, but lower when giving. Thanks, Joe, for putting that in the chat before. We're coming back to it again. They're less forgiving. Nonprofits convince humans to give money to them instead of getting goods. We're competing for donor dollars, so donors have X dollars to give to the causes they are passionate about. They're probably going to give to the nonprofit that has the best messaging or communications that resonates with them, and or the best tech to get the dollars out of them, right? You can have fantastic messaging, but if I'm getting unclear errors and it's very difficult to give,
Mhm.
we're going to lose that donor. For-profits are flush with cash. Zappos and Target, they can spend hundreds of thousands or more. Even for a 1% revenue increase, it's worth it to them. But nonprofits, and I've seen this over and over, where tech or a change might be able to make a 20, 50, 100% difference in a certain metric, and it's very difficult to justify budget for that. Um, Nonprofits are strapped for resources. So, there's a lot of overextending. Everybody here knows I was at a nonprofit prior to Fundraise Up for years, and it's a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot of demand to build in-house, um, and to keep things in-house, regardless of the risk of that. So this is the next generation donation form part. Fundraise Up is what we call a next gen donation form platform. And we have a lot of the stuff that we talk about for e-commerce built into our platform. But what we're going to do today is give away the recipe. We're going to tell you what you need to do to make all of those things happen. And if you have questions, put them in the Q&A over there, and upvote them if you see questions that you want answered, and we'll get to them at the end. But we're going to go through some of these different functionalities that you all expressed and told us in the poll are critical when making a purchase. How do we replicate that in the nonprofit space, in the donation experience? So to have your donation form on your website, on your property, right? And that's an on-site checkout. So many nonprofits, major ones and small ones. You click donate, new tab opens, there's a new domain, and it's off on something else, secure dot whatever platform.com slash long string, and it's in a new tab. It doesn't give you any SEO benefit. There's a lot of problems with that. You lose about 10% of donors. We'll get to that. But what you need to do an on-site checkout, a secure website, a JavaScript developer, a mobile front-end developer, and a QA engineer for all devices and browser types. Sounds like a lot, because it is. But you'll be able to get this presentation and take it back to your web guys, and we'll get through the rest of this. So you're gonna not build your donation form as an iframe, and if any of this tech stuff is over your head, don't worry. We'll be moving back and forth between usable and nerd information. Um, do not build as a pop-up. Pop-ups get blocked by a lot of browsers. It's usually a misconception of some things. Build as a modal overlay or overlap. Test across all main browsers, at least the current version of all browsers, and the prior to. Browsers are updated all the time, and any kind of web property can quickly go out of sync. And you're going to test across all desktop and mobile devices. So here's where we talk about why that's worth the effort of doing it. Okay, and Will's going to drop some links into our chat here for you all, so you can um, read some research on this. By having your checkout on site, 10% lift immediately in revenue out of the gate. No questions asked. We do tests over and over, opening new tab versus not. If you're doing $1 million online now, you would do $1.1 million if you had it on your website. That alone. There's SEO benefits. You're going to get a higher time on site, a lower bounce rate, a more confident donor experience. They're not feeling like they're getting shuttled around to different destinations that may or may not be a branded domain. And that article there, that link, open that tab, read about how having it off site can just clip your conversion rate right out of the gate. And here's a little breakdown in that article. You'll be able to read this in detail, where you can see the different URL examples and the impact it has on your conversion rate. So I'm going to fly through these features, and you can go through them later at a more relaxed pace. Address completion and verification. Almost half said that's what makes a purchase easy for me when I'm buying something. It's super convenient. You need a Google Maps developer account, a Google Maps API key. Um, Google shows locations, not addresses, so it's not 100% accurate for this use, but it's way cheaper. If you want to go super pro, you're going to use something like Locate. or Lob. Lob is what Fundraise Up uses. They actually did a case study with us. We have a link for that as well that you could check out if you'd like. And you need a developer able to work with APIs and responsive web donation forms. So you're going to basically get a Google Maps account, address verification. You're going to have some cost there. You're going to plan out a software development roadmap. How does it work and look in your donation form? Can your donation form format the address as needed in your CRM, right? Some CRMs will just want the street abbreviation or ST or STR or whatever it might be. You're going to have to get that all figured out, and see if that data needs to be cleaned when it comes through. Typically, these address verification platforms will clean it for you. So that's feature 2 for a next-gen form that takes us from nonprofit level to an for-profit level experience, leveling that playing field and that delta between for-profit and nonprofit. Why do you want to do this? And here's some examples of how Fundraise Up does it. We start typing and it pops up in our screen. I click on one and it fills out the form for me. You're going to have data cleanliness and consistency, right? AV versus AVE versus Avenue. You're going to have a reduction of donor keystrokes. Every time somebody has to type something, you're one step closer to losing them. So we're taking those away. You're going to have an increased conversion. In fact, significantly. And we have some research here about the mailing address. If you make the mailing address optional, you can see about an 18% conversion rate increase, right? Just by making the address optional, which may or may not be right for your organization, but it definitely gets more people to give and creates more relationships. And this is a little breakdown here of that autofill. When you have the mailing address required, we see about a 10% drop in conversion. When it's for international donors, it's even a higher drop in conversion rate. International donors are typically a little more privacy conscious. So therefore, making that mailing address optional gives them a way to give without compromising their own values. The other almost half said, I need it to be easy to pay. If I have to go get my pocketbook or wallet out of the living room, dig out the credit card, make sure it's the right one, go back to my desk, type it all in, ask myself which is the CVC code on an Amex because it's got a number on the front and the back, right? Everybody hear me on that one? That's a problem, right? It's not helping you. So you're going to need some mobile and express payment methods because that's what they're doing in their consumer life. That's what they want to do in their nonprofit life. You need a merchant account with PayPal, Apple, Google. If you're going to be offering PayPal, Apple Pay, and Google, you're going to need a compatible payment processor. You're going to have a developer that's familiar with APIs and e-commerce concepts. And you're going to have to complete those applications for each payment method. Some have some costs. Confirm compatibility with your processor. Build in the payment methods for each. As a bonus, build logic that only shows the right payment method for that right transaction. Okay. If Venmo can't support monthly giving, don't show the Venmo option. Okay. Things like that. Um, if I'm on an iPhone, don't show me Google Pay because it won't work. That kind of stuff. Why is this important? So many reasons. Our steadfast Will Pope dropping in some links of the research we have done on this ad nauseum. Um, you know, uh, you'll have a higher gift amount. When we look at our transactions at Fundraise Up, we've done tens of millions of donations at this point. When they're using a express payment method, the average gift is 30% higher. 30%. Just by having PayPal visible, there's a higher trust level, and that increases conversion by about 6%. 20% of donors will give using PayPal if you offer it. And by having Apple Pay and Google Pay, you're getting a conversion rate increase anyway. There's so many benefits here. It should quickly be moved to the top of the list of any fundraising plan because every effort you put into your campaigns is going to be influenced by this, right? It's putting shoes on before you run a race, really. Just thought of this analogy as I was sitting here. So that's the mobile payment and express methods. On that, I can't emphasize how important it is enough. And then we're going to look at, and we had this in our poll as discounts and subscriptions, right? Amazon, um, you know, subscribe to this, get 10% off. So we have something in our platform called an upsell tool. If I give $100, or in this case 120, it says, hey, would you consider $30 or $25 a month instead of your one-time gift? And we see this is tripling the number of monthly donors or more. I have one nonprofit that said they 7x'd the number of monthly donors they were
Mhm.
acquiring through this feature by the power of suggestion.
And Sal, just to say, I mean, we've just finished a study of a few verticals and their increase over the last 3 years of monthly giving. It is far below the increases in monthly subscriptions to Netflix,
Hmm.
to Disney. Like
Wow.
we are underperforming to the philanthropic consumer. The
Yeah.
demand is they will make a monthly gift. We just haven't been giving them the tools to make that
Yeah.
gift. And Sal, just to say, everything that Sal's been showing you recently, we have to remember that a lot of giving is impulsive. A lot of giving
Hmm.
is emotional. And because it's impulsive and emotional, people are ready and they want it to be easy and straightforward and quick. And so all
True.
of these things come together. And that's why you see these numbers increasing. If Sal's team can build and give you the technology that makes it easy to make emotional and impulsive gifts, good things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. And I have some anecdotes I want to share on the UNICEF case study that backs up that point even
Yeah.
more so. So those upsells, another upsell we have is with double the donation. For these are just examples of upsells that get your wheels turning. So we use the API with double the donation, and if the donor's gift was below what the company they enter is willing to match, we're going to say, hey, do you want to increase your gift from your $10 to $25? Because that's when Walt Disney is going to match it. And we're seeing about a 40% of the time an 80% increase in the gift. Like Mike said, the appetite is there. You got to give them the opportunity, right? Um, this is a form of upsell when you ask donors to cover fees. If you ask them nicely and treat them to a frictionless, painless donation experience, we're seeing 92% of donations with all fees covered um, for the nonprofit. So again, you got to ask nicely. We put gold stars. If you uncheck the box, we take the gold stars away. Not too rude, but we put them back if you check the box again. So it's these little nudges that you see in the e-commerce world that are being applied now to this space. Um, I think this slide went out of step, but I can go through this again a little bit. Um, the title is wrong is actually all it is there. So, but what you need for upsells, you need a multi-step giving experience. You need payment processor supporting what's called floating capture points, so you can get their credit card data up here in the beginning, but then let them make some decisions along the way and then capture it at a different point. So that's called a floating capture point of a transaction. You need some good financial data analysis, looking at what works for your organization, not things like what Mike does this with a lot of his clients routinely to see what is the best move for an organization. Um, you need a developer and some team to build these things in. And really, the instructions here are analyze your financials. What's the ROI breakpoint for converting one time to monthly? And then plug in any data you can, build it, roll it out. So we're going to do a quick set of comparisons here. We went through the 90s and on a beautiful time travel journey with Michael at the outset. Brought back a lot of memories of even the first websites I was building on GeoCities and Angel Fire back in the day. Um, so we're going to look at some other things here as comparisons. Just quickly looking at some e-commerce experiences. CC's Closet in New York, Shopify, very prominent mobile payment methods. We see Uber Eats, right? Service fee, 250, right? That's covering fees essentially. People are used to it. They're doing it on everything. Ticketmaster, Uber, any app you use, there's a line item for fees. Nonprofits do not have to be shy anymore about saying, "Hey, this transaction costs money. Can you help me with that?" Forever 21, right? We see that I click on the button, it pops up that screen to finish my checkout. And it's using that on-page checkout that nonprofits could leverage as well. Amazon, this goes into that upsell that we were talking about, where you're asking a donor to do different things to get, you know, a different outcome. They use that one-click technology, subscribe and save, that kind of stuff. That's very similar to change your $100 to a $20 a month donation. We know that that's going to be ultimately a better financial outcome. So the nonprofit industry lags behind the technological advances made by the for-profit industry. Fact, we know this. And again, we're coming up on some time here, so I'm going to fly through these. These are some donation forms. Names are withheld to protect the innocent, but you can see that these donation forms are not where those for-profit checkouts are at, right? These are real ones that I bounced around the internet and grabbed some screenshots. This one says, if you do not see the form loaded, please refresh the page. Excuse me? What? This is another one here, very, very unbranded. It's showing the processor's page and so on. So, I believe this is a poll that we have that we can put up if we have it. But when you are making a purchase online, a donation online in your donor life, which of the following are most important to making a donation for you, right? Again, same things from the for-profit space. Addresses, express payments, mobile payments, opportunities, or trusted on-site checkout, right? So these are the things that we want to make sure that we are able to offer people. All right, some good results there. On-page checkout, super strong. Mobile wallet, strong. Auto address and validation. And I see the upsells not getting much love, but that's okay because it works. Because what that's telling you guys, I'm going to spend more money if I'm upsold, but your donors will do it. Okay. And what would an online donation experience look like if it adhered or exceeded to e-commerce principles? And what happens when e-commerce principles are applied to giving? And we're going to pass this back to Mike now to go over a couple quick case studies of some nonprofits.
Yep, really quick. If we can get it up on the screen, I'm going to jump in. So let's take a look. I mean, if we go back one, just go back one. There's no doubt that fundraisers, you all come from the show me state, right? Enough of the talking, show me some numbers. So let's take a look at some of these examples. So on conversion rates, here we are with Salvation Army in the UK. Average donation conversion rate was 15 to 17%. With Fundraise Up, 49.8%, right? An improved UX, the proper use of gift aid, and an incredible increase. So let's go to the next one, right? Let's put all of these things together. Here you can see UNICEF in the United States, monthly giving, right? Recurring digital donors up by 300% with the new forms, right? Increased digital revenue by 50%. Let's go to the next one.
I was going to quickly add there.
Add an example.
The quick thing is when they added mobile payments, their key demographic shifted from the 40 plus age down to the 25 to 40, and because they started addressing those donors with a new light, new technology.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then on a whole number of numbers here that are impressive with Partners in Health around upselling, right? You can see increases in conversion, average gift, right? Overall revenue. And then last, I like this last one, just that sense of, and what we've been talking about this whole time, of a better experience, right? Just the customer experience. And we'll call that the philanthropic customer experience. And so you can see here with Boys and Girls Club, right, that it's easier, less clicks, right? More recurring revenue, just wins across the board. And for me, that's impressive. And so if we go to the next one, Sal, you don't know this one.
So I didn't know. This is a surprise to me.
Yeah. So for me as a fundraiser, when I see those numbers, I have a philanthropic Pavlovian reaction. Like I am salivating at the chance to increase revenue by 50%. I am salivating at the chance to boost monthly giving. I am salivating at all of those numbers I just saw. And they simply happen because we're doing the things that are already working in the commercial world, right? We're applying both technology, experience, and a little bit of programming, grease, and hard work to give people what they're already expecting and doing in the commercial side and bringing it over to the nonprofit side. And lo and behold, self-fulfilling prophecy, we're seeing better numbers. So for me, all of those examples give me a bit of philanthropic panting and saliva.
Yeah, absolutely.
For your
I
move.
know we have there's a few questions in there.
Yep.
I want to get some time to those. I don't know. I'll talk to the green room here and the folks running if we have some question time. I know we have the lounge after, so anybody who we don't
Mm-hmm.
get to here, we can talk in the lounge. So find the lounge, come into the lounge, we'll talk. So how can your nonprofit up its online giving game? Kind of a pitch, not really, but you have two options really, right? Build it, find the budget, hire an agency, build an in-house team, build, test, debug, iterate, measure impact later, full control, uncertain results, months or years. And option B is buy. With Fundraise Up, um, it's a find no budget, sign no contract, implement from existing software, or use Fundraise Up to use Fundraise Up, and we'll integrate with your CRM and website. I saw one question said, how do we move donors to recreate their gifts? You don't have to. We move them over. They won't know anything. You get to measure the impact immediately. You get less control, right? We have a big company. We have 100 people working here to make things happen. Um, but you get certain results, and that's days or weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that wraps up this. Mike, I know you want to talk about your form here. We have literally two
Sure.
minutes.
Well, again, after doing this for dozens of years, we took a step back. We looked at other donation platforms, and our team of developers and implementers made a comparison chart. And so, if you go to the URL that you can see, and everyone will have access to this slide deck, but hjcnewmedia.com/the real donation deal. Go there. You can download the form in more detail and just be able to comparison shop and where the functionality benefits and improvements that Fundraise Up has made versus the ones that are already out there. So go there, grab it, and then mark it up, right? Sit in a room, talk to your colleagues, and see what's what.
Yeah, and we put a few links there in the chat to these things here. You see, there's a link right there to HJC New Media's comparison chart form. You can download that. There's a link there if you're interested in learning more about Fundraise Up. We're giving some white glove expedited if you want to learn more only for the duration of the conference with a lower platform fee. Again, as always, no contract, no budget need. And there's also an upcoming webinar about Facebook data that you can um, grab there. So click those links, whatever piques your interest.
Cool.
We do have a Q&A here. We only have a couple minutes here. I'm going to let Brandon tell me when to shut up, but let's see here. I'm going to go through a couple of these questions.
Hey,
Are we
no,
good?
yeah, no, Sal and Mike, thank you so much. I do want to get to a couple of the questions, but I just want to
Sure.
say we appreciate it and just really think the things that we're looking at and increasing the conversion ratios and those upsells, sometimes it's not always the first thing that you think about, but they can lead to such an impact and people want to take that opportunity. So I thought that was really interesting and engaging. Just real quick, we do have a question here from Stephanie Powers.
Mm-hmm.
If we change fundraising platforms to incorporate some of these features or ideas, how do you recommend explaining this change to monthly donors who would need to recreate their donations? I thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, so if it's to Fundraise Up, we do recurring migrations. So the donor never knows and it's all in place
Mm-hmm.
and everything's fine. They never have to know. You have to talk to where you're moving to see if they have the capabilities to do a recurring gift migration. It's
Yeah.
pretty complex, but we've nailed it here. And we did UNICEF, which was
Yeah.
tens of
It,
thousands.
and Sal, just to say the same. This happens pretty often, and what we'll call tokens. Being able to transfer people's monthly gifts, uh, pretty straightforward, and lots of experience doing that. Everyone. So yeah,
Great. Yeah, so reach out to
Consultant, this
HJC.
is great to hear. That's good. That's good.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Good.
Sal and Michael, one more really quick question. Um, Nina Patel asks, how do you navigate collecting across multiple states in a compliant way? Have you ever experienced that?
I don't know if you have anything to add, Michael, but I'll say that it's really up to the appetite of your legal in-house of how I see some nonprofits that want to take care of all the California donors in a certain way with the California Privacy Act. Some nonprofits just say, well, I'm in New York, so that's where I need to adhere to my principles. Um, but we work with, a lot of nonprofits global that are cross country, not just
Yeah.
cross state.
Yeah, Nina, also, we've written some white papers on state attorney general privacy and donations. But I think Sal is right. I mean, the default is where are you HQ'd and registered, and that attorney general and privacy rules kind of dictate most of how you operate. But some organizations, have different rules for different states. But I'm happy to connect and share some of those white papers. So.